Hello, welcome to my corner of the internet. I was not expecting guests today. I would have made snacks. Well, take a seat, I guess. You want to hear about this book? It's called The Girl Who Drank the Moon. It's a beautiful story. One of my favorite characters is actually a dragon. His name is Fryan. He thinks he's massive, or to quote, a simply enormous dragon, but he's actually very, very tiny. He gets bigger later in the book, but it's pretty fun to read about. Dragons are really interesting, actually. They come in many different shapes, different forms, and they come from places all over the world. But the only thing that peeves me is that there are things that people call dragons that aren't actually dragons. Well, while you're here, why don't we talk about that? Maybe go look around, grab a snack, make sure you have some water with you, grab a blanket, and get comfortable. Let's talk about it. My name is Lost Boy, and welcome to Cozy Corner. Get started.
Hey there, editor Lost Boy here. Just wanted to pop in and say none of the drawings except for the animation are mine. I did not make these charts or drawings. I looked around on Pinterest stuff. I tried to find the sources, but I couldn't link them. I wish I could. I promise I will in the future. But okay, I just wanted to let you all know that. Alright, back to the video.
I actually have notes with me today. I call it Dragonomic types. The history of dragons is not really known. They kind of are a bit mysterious in a way. They've been used as symbols and as deities or for various forces of nature. But they also are, just their own thing, like a lizard. The word dragon comes from the word dragon. How do I say that again? Dragon? Yeah, drakon, which means serpent or snake. Different cultures have different depictions as well as different meanings. Which, that makes sense. You've probably seen the differences between, like, a dragon from Asia and a dragon from the West. They're usually very different, and they have their own abilities and their own features. European dragons are depicted as fearsome creatures, usually burning down cities and terrorizing people. I would say like this guy, but come on, let's be honest. He ain't gonna hurt nobody. Like, he's chill. His name's Azul. But yeah. They typically breathe fire and are, and yeah, they're usually aggressive. They're seen as symbols of evil and chaos, slain by brave knights in many stories. I'm be honest, I feel bad for the dragon sometimes. We read this book I read this book one time. It's one of the oldest stories known to exist. It's called Beowulf. And in the story, there was this dragon, like, at the end, who, of course, they killed it. But honestly, I feel bad for the dragon. It was just vibing. Like, it was just doing its own thing. It wasn't bothering anybody. And then people come over and killed it. Like, bro, like, how the dragon got aggressive because somebody stole from the dragon. And it's just, do you expect the dragon not to be pissed? You took its treasure. Yeah, it's gonna be mad. Give it back. Like, that is the only reason it was so angry, because someone stole from the dragon. Most dragons are actually pretty noble, and, like, there are the mischievous ones. This guy for sure. But most of the time they are like they're just doing their own thing, and then people in stories come over and they come and slay the dragon. It's just like, why? You didn't need to go bother the dragon. It was just doing its own thing. You didn't need to go bother it. But oh well, let's move on. Asian dragons, as I explained before, well actually no, I didn't say. Alright, let me start over with that. Asian dragons are, you know, those dragons you see, they're really long, like they typically have like frills and all sorts of stuff like that. They're actually, by definition of what a dragon is, they're technically not a dragon, they're a worm. But we'll get into that in a sec. Right now we're going over the history. They're usually depicted as holders of wisdom and prosperity and power, in contrast to how they're seen in the West and European stories. You probably have heard before, or like grew up with these stories yourself, of dragons in Asian culture who bestow wisdom upon the masses, or like they help the heroes of a story. They're not a antagonist, so to speak. Mayan dragons, they had their own spin. Mayans had their own spin on the idea with their feathered serpent god. I hope I'm saying this right. Quetzalcoatl. Okay, I'm just gonna put it up here. You try to say it. I can't remember how to speak it right now. They represent the duality of life and death. That's one of my favorite kinds of just deities or dragons in general, where like depictions of life and death are some of my favorite, and it's even better when it's applied to dragons because, of course, this guy's name is Necromancer actually. Native American dragons, they're usually associated with creation and destruction, symbolizing the power of nature, which makes a lot of sense. The dragons are basically their own force of nature. And going back to that god. They also were a god unto the Aztecs. I think I actually wrote a pronunciation here. Gulakukan. Like Gulkukan. I think I said it right. I'm gonna write up here, and you judge for yourself. To the Aztecs, this god was the protector and food provider. He was a god of knowledge and understood art and science. And to them, this god invented books. I honestly like the idea of this god. This god actually denied animal sacrifices. He would not accept them. Well, I forgot in my notes what they did accept, but you get the picture. Bottom line, every culture has had their own ideas of these creatures. Though the umbrella term is dragon, many of these creatures go by different names. People just call them dragons, thinking that, like, it has scales and it can fly, or something along those lines. It doesn't always fly. They still call it a dragon. So, they actually go by different classifications that highlight each of their own unique traits to their own degree. So let's talk about that. Alright, let's get into the types of dragons. So, we have a wyvern. Wyverns walk on two legs and have two wings and usually a barbed tail. They're associated with they're usually associated with strength. They don't breathe fire, and I forgot to write down where they're usually found. Their habitats actually are in, like, maybe tree, mountain areas. They're usually chilling around there. I hear them around at night, actually. They're usually, you know, just in the trees, and it gets a little bit annoying when I'm trying to sleep and I can't because they're just up. I'm an early riser anyway, so it's fine. So let's actually define what a dragon is. I'll use my friend here as Azul as an example. 4 legs, 2 wings. That is a dragon. They breathe fire, and they are associated with war and evil. At least like this specific kind of like an actual dragon. In the usually like you're in Europe and in the West. Though there has been a bit of a cultural shift with that. Oh, I just realized I forgot a dragon friend over there. Here's this guy. I have not named him yet, but here you go. Take a look at him. He just likes to chill out. I usually chilling by my bed, but let's have you right here for today. So, let's get into what I was saying before about Asian dragons, the worm. Worm does not have legs, it does not have wings. It's like a worm, but spelled W-Y-R-M. Worm. They don't breathe fire either. They just slither and crawl around, basically. They have strong jaws and a strong tail. Words. Hold on, let me check my notes again. Their habitats are usually in deep waters. Honestly, I get it. They don't want to deal with everything else going on up here. But that's fine. Yeah. Legends tell if their body is cut into pieces, they can rejoin back together. Kind of like I don't want to say kind of like an actual worm, because someone might try that. There is one kind of worm, I can't remember what it's called, but you can cut it into pieces and it will just regrow. But I do not know what it's called. Maybe that's all worms. I'm not sure. I can't remember right now. But worms are associated with meanness. If you want my opinion, they're just squirmy dudes that just want to vibe. They ain't doing nothing wrong. So, Drake. That's what this guy is, actually. See, as you can see, 4 legs but no wings. This is a drake. It's not a dragon. Remember that. They can be used as a collective word for any young dragonling, actually, but it's just easier for me at least, to have them separate as a species than just calling a young dragonling. Just call them a dragonling. You don't gotta call them a drake. It's a whole different species and just makes things harder. Kind of like how baby bunnies are called kittens. I'm not kidding. You can fact check that. It's weird. But there actually are different kinds of drakes. The red drakes are like the ones that breathe fire, and cold drakes, like guess ice and stuff like that, are usually blue and white. Oh, I almost forgot this little sticky note. There's something called a knucker. A knucker is actually a nickname for a worm that's lived in underwater pools. Oh, I'm falling off. How about you come chill over here? Are you gonna want to chill here? Alright, that works. Look, he's vibing. So, yeah. A knucker is what you call a worm that's lived in underwater pools and not in just like deep water. Actually, I got that wrong. Deep water and wells. I almost forgot that. So, very rarely do drakes actually have wings, but the ones that do are the most terrifying. Like, think about it. You already have this bulky dragon, like this bulky tank of a dragon. And now, that doesn't sit right with me. Just the idea of something like that being able to fly. already just the idea of that, something like that being able to just crawl, like, think of that, crawl super fast at you. Maybe not at like super speed, but come on, that's terrifying. They have similar features to Western dragons, like these guys. But, so yeah, I guess you could just think of this guy, but without the wings, and that's Drake. See, Drake, dragon. Drake, dragon. But anywho, their habitats are usually in rocky places. So yeah, mountains, or even like I'd say some waterfalls and streams. Like, I don't know if you've seen them before. Maybe I'll try putting pictures of it. But there are these areas with, you know, rivers and stuff full of rocks. I've gone hiking. Maybe tiny drakes would want to chill around there, but who knows. So, then there is a amphitheater. Amphitheater. I think I'm saying that right. Yeah. They don't have legs, but they have 2 wings. I'm gonna put the name up here as I've been doing. But yeah, that, I don't have an example with me right now, but think of a wyvern just without the legs. That's an amphitheater. Some have feathered wings, others have more like bat-like scale wings. It just depends on the region most of the time. Yeah, I'd say that the feathered wings would be in probably like more colder regions, and then bat wings would, or I think you would call them scaled wings. Scaled wings are more in the warmer regions, which makes sense. The feathers are there to keep them warmed to some degree, and then like the scales help them absorb more heat, because actually a lot of these animals, yeah, there are some that are cold-blooded, but others that are warm-blooded, and most of the time it just varies from a case-by-case basis. But they have different body types depending on the area that they have to adapt to. So think of a shorter one with wings. They probably have to be more in like possibly like the dunes, like sandier areas. And then those, or even like the smaller ones could be in like thickly wooded forests that have a lot of trees, so they're being smaller makes it easier to like fly around the trees and everywhere. And then bigger ones probably in fields or valleys. But yeah, you know, their habitats are usually located in treetops. It's actually pretty funny. I wonder how they land. I don't always see that. I've seen it a few times, but not enough to have a good memory. Or maybe it's like this. There's this guy. It's a seahorse, but picture it with wings. So like, I'm thinking like maybe their tails curl on a tree or a branch, and then that's how they stay on places. So here's where we get to a confusing part. You know how I said a nickname for wyvern is a nucker? A nucker is kind of its own thing, actually. They have 4 legs and a large body and vestigial wings. If you don't know what vestigial means, like this guy. This guy's wings are basically vestigial. You can't really use them. He has them, but does he look like he's flying anywhere? I don't think so. I'm sorry, Necromancer. I didn't mean to make fun of you. He's gonna be giving me the death stare for the rest of this. But yeah, the nuckers are actually their own thing. Wyverns can be called not wyvern. Scratch that. I messed that up. Worms can be called. Did I say wyvern before? I'm gonna have to look back and see if I called that a wyvern. Worms in deep water can be called nuckers. but there is a difference between them and actual knuckers, so you're better off just calling them worms. Worm is identified, remember, worm's identified with no arms, no legs, no wings, worm. Like, just a worm. Yeah, they have venom that can melt prey, which is terrifying when you think about it. They can just spray out something and your whole body just starts to dissolve. I wonder if it's like how fire, like, okay, I've heard this once where if lava were to hit your skin, it's so hot that it would not register on your body. It'd be painful after a while, I bet, but it would not register. So is that kind of the same thing for venom? Is it, or no, that's acid. So, well, okay, it can melt prey though, so it's acidic. Venom that is acidic. That just sounds like venom in general. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Let's move on. They also are called sea serpents sometimes, but yeah, you can just call them a knucker if that makes it easier. Their habitat is in damp places. They like to just stay in warmer, moist. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a word for this. I'm gonna remember it after I'm done. I know I am. What's it called? I'm gonna put it up here and like later when I can remember what that word is. But yeah, pretty much moist region. So think of rainforest, think of just, yeah, areas that have a lot of moisture and are pretty damp. They hiss when they're provoked. They're not really fighters. I'd say that. Knuckers are pretty docile actually. Like they don't try to pick a fight. A lot of the times they just bluff. Like they'll buck out and hiss and scratch, but it's really just bluffing. Their claws aren't as, how do I put this? Their claws aren't as sharp to really do as to kill. They can, like, don't try to fight one. They absolutely would be able to. But in generally speaking, they're not designed for combat. They usually try to run or swim in that case. But that's how it is. It's actually interesting how their wings are vestigial. It makes me think there was a time where they were part of both land, like the land, air, and sea. All four elements. Not four. I'm dumb. That insinuates that like if four elements that they are part of lava. I don't think that's the case. I think it would just be that that long ago, before their wings became vestigial, while they had wings, they flew in the air, would start going in the sea. But anywho, that's enough. That's enough out of me. Let's do a quick review of everything we learned. 2 legs, 2 wings, and they have a barbed tail. That is a wyvern. A dragon, 4 legs, 2 wings. They breathe fire. Well, sometimes. Most of the time they breathe fire. But yeah, we're going off of physical basis here. Then worm. No legs, no wings. Just one giant noodle. A danger noodle. Think of a snake whenever I'm describing a worm. Then there's a drake. 4 legs, no wings. Think of a Komodo dragon. Yeah, it's interesting. Komodo dragon. It's called a dragon, but it's not. But oh well. And also bearded dragons. Well, that's a tangent for another time. But yeah. 4 legs, no wings, drake. Okay, we got that. Then there's an amphitheater. No legs, 2 wings. think noodle, wings, that's it. That's an amphitheater. A knucker. 4 legs, large body, vestigial wings. So think a drake. The wings are very, very tiny. That's the best description I got for a knucker. I really enjoyed this. How about we make this a weekly or monthly thing? I don't know how often I'll be able to actually do that, sit down and talk, but yeah, why don't we do this more often? It's pretty fun, and I enjoyed finally getting my feelings out about these things because a wyvern is not a dragon. Next person I hear saying that, I will drink water. I won't actually do anything, but uh, I'm glad I was able to actually get all the information out. that was a lot. Thank you for sticking around for all of it if you made it this far. Uh, I'll, I'll let you go now. You can stick around if you'd like, but yeah, you can stick around if you'd like, but I'm not gonna make you. There's a whole internet to explore, and I just appreciate you exploring my little corner, or as I'm calling it, my little cozy corner of the internet. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. Bye.